नहमदुहु व नुसल्ली अला रसूलिहिल करीम अम्मा बाद फ़ऊज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम. Dear student, this is the voice of Dr. Muhammad Iqbal, your course instructor, standard setting in assessment. MPhil Education, Semester 2. This is my lecture number 26, and it includes the unit number 7 and last unit of our course outline, standard setting in assessment. And this course, this session includes the future directions and challenges of Dear students, I will cover in 7.1 in this unit. After completion of this session, students will revise the future direction and the challenges of standard setting, revise the rounding off process, and elaborate the second challenge, methods of adjusting cut score. So these are the learning outcomes of this session number 26. First of all, I will define what is methods of adjusting cut score. Dear student, it is sometimes the case that entity mean the organization which is responsible for making cut standard settings. So that entity responsible for setting performance standards is dissatisfied with the cut scores recommended to it by a standard setting panel. It means I will discuss the need of adjusting cut score. What is the need and justification of adjusting cut scores? It means when organization responsible for making standard setting, they are not satisfied with the recommended performance standards by a panel. The entity may wish to modify the performance standards for a variety of reasons. They may adjust or change the cut scores for multiple reasons. Among them, for one, the agency may have additional information to bring to bear, perhaps information that was available but not provided to the standard setting participants at the time of making standard settings or making cut scores because of concerns about participants' ability, like in the method NGOF and modified NGOF. There's a big criticism on this method. Because of the concerns about the participants' ability to make use of the data in an already complex standard setting context. So because of this complexity, or because of that complex context, they need to revise or adjust cut scores. A testing context may have changed between a standard setting meeting and in the time the operational test is given. It means when they decided or when they planned the meeting of standard setting, and at that time when they operationally started to implement the test, so the context or situations have been changed. So such a change in time limits the mode of administration, that is paper based or computer based. So it means in the meeting they decided to implement the test paper based, but at the time of administration they have to, or they decided to implement the test computer based. So are any number of other factors that may have played a part in participants' original cut score recommendations. So it means the situation changed, or there is a difference between the planning meeting or implementing situation. So that's why they may change or adjust the cut scores because of this changing context or situation. Of course, measurement specialists have long understood that the need to adjust performance standards would likely arise, and every standard setting method mentioned in our textbook has an accompanying adjustment methods. It means they many times arise the need of adjustments. For example, calculation of a standard deviation of estimate of cut score made by individual judges is sometimes used to adjust recommendations stemming from the Enghoff 1970, Abel 1972 and Nadelsky 1954 methods, or it means the recommendations arises or root out are stemming from these three methods. So more recently introduced standard setting method also sometimes include the calculation of an error estimate. So it was also a reason. So the bookmark procedure derives cut scores by averaging individual theta estimate of examinees at the cut score. So those averages have associated standard deviation, also expressed in theta units, which can be used for cut score adjustment. So this was also a adjustment, cut score adjustment. Dear student, a notion underlying most standard setting procedure is that the cut score is an estimate, not in the sense of population parameter, but a statistic that is subject to random fluctuation. It means random changing. What random up and down. So like any static, cut score can thus be thought of as having associated standard error of the mean, derived typically by the well-known equation. So standard error of mean is equal to Sx oblique underscore n equation. Whereas Sx is the standard deviation of observation of variable x, and n is the number of observation that are examinees for method such as borderline group participants for others. A somewhat related psychometric concept, the standard error of measurement. So whereas the standard error focuses attention on variability or mean change in the participants' judgments, so an agency may also want to take into consideration the reliability of test scores. Reliability means consistency when making a final decision about a cut score. So as is also widely known, no test yields perfectly reliable data, and the degree of unreliability can be quantified in classical test theory terms as standard error of mean, as shown in equation. Standard error of mean is standard deviation 1 minus r xx. So standard Sx stands for standard deviation of examinee's observed score on the test, and Rx is an estimate of the reliability of the test scores. So this is of course the simplest expression of standard error of mean and can be thought of as an average degree of uncertainty across the range of observed scores. For tests constructed and scored based on the item response theory approach, an estimate of measurement error at each scale point is easily calculated using the inverse of the square root of the information at that point as shown in equation. Standard error in parenthesis theta is equal to 1 over under root 1 theta, whereas 1 is the amount of information provided by the test at a given value of ability, that is theta, and is obtained by taking the sum of information yielded by each item in a test at the given value of theta. It means for tests constructed and scored based on an item response theory (IRT) approach, an estimation of measurement error at each scale point is easily calculated using the inverse of the square root of the information at the point as shown in this equation. And the explanation of this equation is 1 multiplied by theta is the amount of information provided by the test at a given value of ability, that is theta, and is obtained by taking the sum of the information yielded by or obtained by, and each item is in test at the given value of theta. So thus it seems important to at least consider whether these two outcomes should be treated the same or whether test reliability should be taken into account when an agency makes a final decision about a cut scores. So dear students, I have discussed in this session about the adjusted cut scores and described what do you mean by adjusted cut scores and what is its need or justification, why an agency of making standard setting adjusts the cut scores, and what was the need of adjusting. So there are certain reasons for adjusting the cut scores. For example, the situation may change at the time of meeting of planning of standard setting or implementing the actual standard setting method, or the invention of some new methods like Enghoff, Abel, Nadelsky. Because of these methods and use of multiple situations and use of statistics to make the process more reliable and consistent, these cut scores needed to be adjusted. And sometimes the entity of responsible for making standard setting was not satisfied with the cut scores made by examiners or panel of experts. So that is why they felt need to change these cut scores. So this was all about this lecture, in which I described the second challenge of future directions of unit number 7 of your course outline, standard setting in assessment. So dear students, I will present in my some next lecture and next session in my next session. Assalamu alaikum.